Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. Thank you for making the intentional choice to be part of this community. It matters that you are here with us today. Whether you're here for the very first time or have been here for decades, welcome. I'm Reverend Theresa Rohlck, and I'm joined today by QuianaDenae Perkins, cristy cardinal, in co-creating this worship service. We also have a special musical guest, Mario Sulaksana, and behind the scenes, tech and Zoom support from Greg Peterson and Mike Halerz. Just a reminder that despite all the practice we've had with Zoom, the unexpected may still happen, and I ask your patience if there are any pauses or technical delays. If you would take a few breaths now and settle into this time of worship. Together, our opening words are by Alicia Ford, entitled "When We Pause to Remember." When we pause to remember who we are, companions on this grand experiment called life, when we take a moment to shed the ways we have been carefully taught, to lead from fear, to punish the poor, to persecute those who don't look like we do, to deny rights to those who love, to believe that we are separate, that some people are superior to others. When we take a moment to shed all of that and hear our stories, hear and see each other into existence, into community, when we take a moment to embrace, to practice a different way of being, when we answer the call of love, then we are living into the promise of building the world we dream about. It is beautiful to dream, to cast a vision, to stretch our minds into the future and imagine what may be if we were to build a new way of being. Not someday, but beginning again today, beginning again every day that we have breath. Taking courage with these hands and hearts to make real the dream of a more equitable world, to journey together, seeking to be transformed even as we transform, becoming explorers and learners in this world around us. Becoming explorers and learners in this world around us, humbled by what we do not yet know, fulfilling the promise of healing a fragmented world, laboring not just in hope, but also in love. In this spirit, we commit. In this spirit, we gather. In this spirit, we pray. The wisdom of Alicia Ford. It is also in that spirit of love that we light our chalice, knowing that other Unitarian Universalists around the world are marking the opening of their services in a similar way. We truly are connected when we pause to speak our chalice lighting words together. Will you join me as we say, we light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Building a new way of being together, of being in the world with others is not just aspirational. It is possible and real and begins in the promises we make to each other, to be in relationship in healthy and compassionate ways. It begins with our covenant. I invite you, including those who are new, to join me in saying the words of our covenant together. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. Dear ones, we are gathered for worship, And being so gathered, we should begin with singing. The hymn is, "Where Do We Come From?" I invite you to sing along as you listen to the piano. The words may be familiar to you. It's hymn 1003, if you have a teal hymnal nearby. And if not, the words will appear in the chat window. So while we are each in our own spaces, know that your individual voices matter, connecting you to each other through this shared musical experience.
Errol's Garden by Jillian Hibbs. I'm really good at growing things. I'm so good at it that we started running out of room at home. What I really wanted was a real garden. I dreamed about my garden a lot. Then one day I noticed something I had never seen before. I always thought that we lived on the top floor, but there was another button. And there was a roof. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it before. This was the perfect spot for the garden. I told Dad and Tia right away. We learned as much as we could about roof gardens. But we needed help. Luckily, everyone else was just as excited as me. We made a plan. Everyone had different things to bring, which was good, because there were lots of different things to do. And there still are. I love picking all the fruit and vegetables. I I really love carrots. Gardens are fun because they are always changing. So, what will we grow next year? The end.
I'd like to invite you deeper into the worship time in the spirit of meditation. I'm going to share some words from QuianaDenae, and I ask that you get your body into a comfortable position and we'll take some collective breaths. Winter series number 1. Don't fear winter. It is a time of holding and patience, of introspection and speculation. This is the space where we dwell in the knowing that we are owed this darkness just as much as we are owed the light. I believe in green and all the possibilities that lay on the other end of deep thaw.
Good morning, friends. I wore my bee mask today because we're talking about gardens. For those of you who don't know me, my name is QuianaDenae Perkins, and I proudly serve this community as the coordinator of Congregational Life. Before I begin with my reflection today, I want to call on my ancestors, comrades, and elders to be with me, to be present with me as I offer these thoughts with you. I call on them to make this space holy, to make it a temporary home. I want to offer a couple of caveats or words before I get started. The view from which I am reflecting on the 8th principle is from a denominational standpoint, and also as a person who has just started their ministerial formation journey. To offer context about the 8th principle, and it will be posted in the chat as well. The proposed language of the 8th principle reads as such: we, the member congregations of Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in our lives and institutions. Now, journey with me as I consider what are we growing next year. COVID has been a season, not the season we planned for, which raises the question, how does one prepare for layered pandemics? COVID, racial uprisings, acts of racial terror at the US Capitol, wrestling with the impact of capitalism on employment, housing, education, medical access, and one of the most tumultuous election cycles of our time. I digress. Seasonal preparation. In the winter, I plan for snow. I have outdoor equipment, several sets of protective outer gear, and my winter game is on point. I'm a Minnesota gal after all. Spring is many umbrellas, many as in many of them, we lose them constantly, and a rain slicker and waterproof shoes. Summer is probably close to my favorite. I get to change my house. I add in fans, the air conditioner, and my wardrobe becomes full of frilly dresses, and I get to wear open-toed shoes. But the fall has me falling back in love with sweaters and hoodies in such a slow progression. I forget that winter is looming. And each new season brings about a change in my heart and energy broadcast. In the summer, I'm outside constantly. The lake, camping, state park hikes, I never know who I might see. So even in my mask, I smile nice and big and I project friendly. I want to be as inviting as the ray of sun. Winter is a different story. I have seasonal depression, and I am focused on self-care and emotional maintenance. My winter energy broadcast is much quieter. akin to a sunny day in the middle of winter. As we start to move into the fall of 2021 of the COVID pandemic, I am wondering what I am preparing for. What equipment might I need? Will this new season require home changes? What energy am I broadcasting and receiving? And I am called to the last line of Errol's garden. What are we growing next year? As a person, I look over my own personal plot in our community garden, and it is well tended and loved, but that is not the case for the entire community garden. Some plots look interrupted, like something happened and the gardener was unable to return. I wonder what UUAA, our larger governing body, is planting for the year. I wonder what UUAA, our brick and mortar community, is planting for the year. What work is being done now that will impact our 2022 harvest? The denominationally proposed, the language of the proposed 8th principle states, we, the member congregations of Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. And the garden calls. What are we currently tending? What are the areas of our community that get the most sun and the right amount of water? And the garden calls. What needs tending? What has been forgotten in the rush of pandemic transition? And the garden calls. What has the potential to grow? What happens when a community lives into all of the 8 UU principles, including the proposed 8th? There are so many lingering questions under this hard frost. I want to spend the rest of my reflection time digging into those questions. What are we currently growing? Most of our UU congregations are predominantly white. This is not good or bad, it's a truth. I use the word predominantly with intention. I don't want to erase the past, present, or future contributions of Black, Indigenous, and people of color that have always been and remain active in the UU faith. We are here. And in my 20 years in UU spaces, I have engaged all kinds of UU whiteness: fragile white, passive aggressive white, liberal white, passive white. I don't see color white. I'm married to a person of color white. My kids are children of color. I've adopted children of color. Aggressively anti-Black white, racist white, terroristic threat white. And they all have one common factor: white supremacy culture. To lean hard into our garden metaphor, we are attempting to grow a thriving faith community in soil that is contaminated with white supremacy. If we are upholding and idolizing concepts like perfectionism, individualism, power hoarding, or sense of urgency, we should not be surprised when we are forced to harvest whole populations ravished with imposter syndrome, tokenism, model minorities, communities that are dying out because they are closed or siloed, where there is no room for leadership or ideas, communities that are stalled on and over language, communities where faith has become transactional. From this vantage point, from the vantage point of a gardener, white supremacy is a toxic, invasive weed. It is hurting the soil, damaging the tender roots, taking over the canopy. It is choking out the light. That's not what I want to harvest, not when we have the opportunity to journey toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a multicultural, diverse, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppression in ourselves and in our institutions. It's not what I want to harvest. What needs tending? What was a liberal faith in 1793, 1825, or 1961 has vastly changed. It's 2021. Sharing the pulpit with people, honoring the full spectrum of gender experiences and expressions is what we do. We are no longer clinging to the binary, and GLBTQ identity is out and fabulous. Accessibility has expanded to support a range of needs, physical, mental, emotional. Black, Indigenous, and people of color are demanding a seat and a menu at the table, refusing to accept cold plates out the back door. The world has evolved, and we as a UU faith need to evolve or we risk dying out. When the time is right, we, the larger UU community, should discuss the power of adaptation. I call us back to Errol's garden. I imagine that alongside with the garden's physical growth and popularity, the energy of the community also shifted. Changes in the land also generate changes in the energy broadcast. My winter broadcast is much quieter, akin to a sunny day in the middle of winter. I imagine the people in Errol's community were not a community prior to the garden. They were just people who lived in the same building. Once the garden started, they were interacting, engaging in dialogue, and becoming a web of support for each other. My summer energy broadcast is loud. I want to be inviting as a ray of sun. Year one of COVID has called for a cultural shift from I to we, expanding how we see and care for each other. I've seen so many beautiful gestures of kindness exchanged among new neighbors and friends. I have seen us be our best selves. No matter what happens in this next phase of pandemic reality, we cannot let that go. We must hold on to that part. We must continue to be beloved community. To dig deeper into the garden metaphor, there are always two stories happening in a community garden at any given time. The growing of individual plots and the collection of plots that constitute a community garden. That is to say, a community garden needs both individual and communal labor to thrive. Community is created and maintained when there is covenant, agreement, and good faith, action, and energy towards shared goals. I agree. I think the work ahead, the work of healing, growing, and thriving our UU faith community is both individual and collective. When I am tending just my plot, I have the impression all is well and perfect. It is a very limited vantage point from which to make my assessment. The work of sustainable faith is not rooted in individual good. It is rooted in communal good. I do the work in shared spaces that focuses on our interconnected thriving, sharing seeds, offering to water, helping to weed. This is the work required to live into the we that makes us community. The last question I hold is this: what has the potential to grow? What happens when a community fully lives into the UU principles, including the proposed eighth? The eighth principle is what my Aunt Tracy, who named me QuianaDenae, it's what Aunt Tracy would call love in action. She taught me that love in action is a verb meant to influence all you do and how you move in the world. Love in action moves us from ideation to actualization. Love in action does not slow down to look up words or definitions. Love in action does not require everyone believe as I believe. Love in action does not require that I place money in the basket. Love in action does not require that I am quiet, small, or convenient. See, love in action is loud, bright, pressing, intrusive. Love in action is equal parts head, heart, hands, direct and unapologetic. Love in action is equal parts verb, commandment, commitment, and binding covenant. So we arrive at harvest time. Is there a new branch of UU theology under this hard pandemic frost? Is the 8th principle a new UU season? What if our process of dialogue and adoption of the 8th principle is us stomping about in the rainy days of April before the May of flowers? What if the process of discernment that we engage in is required to prepare us for a garden that offers us the most magical summer? A summer where everyone is aspiring to be aligned with all 8 principles. A new season of UU where we can say with confidence, whiteness is not centered here. Ways of moving that affirm whiteness are welcome but will not be idolized. A summer full of celebrations that call on us to dance with our whole selves, head, heart, and hands. I think the work ahead has 2 major components: tending to our individual plots and helping others in our community garden. I think the task list must include naming that which is harming us, that which is destroying us at the root, that which is choking out the sun, that which is killing our community garden: white supremacy. Friends, anger will not shield us from calls to change. All the shades of white will not save us. Denial and deferral will not save us. Threats of financial disinvestment will not save us. Threats to leave brick and mortar communities will not save us. No diverse staff, no people of color minister, no Black Lives Matter flag, no Indigenous land acknowledgement. No, friends, none of that will save us. We will have to work collectively. The predominantly white UU faith will need to participate and play a major role in saving themselves. So I ask, what will we need to let go of? What will we need to give? Who needs to be at the planning table, workbench, dispute resolution roundtable, and harvest buffet if we are going to move from individual survival into collective thriving? All we have is each other. Is relationships fortified in love and trust, wrapped in mutual care, principled struggle, and faith. Friends, all we have is our garden. So I ask you and I ask myself, what will we grow next year? Ashe and amen.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, and I say to myself, what a wonderful world.
Oh, what a wonderful world we are living in. And I wonder, what could happen if we added collective economics? Know that your contributions to UUAA help us grow our ministries and our connections in the larger Ann Arbor community. Please give at UUAA.org/giving. I also want to invite you to social hour after this. The social hour link is also in the chat. If you are new to our community, please let the host know so that we can give you a welcoming, we can welcome you here to UUAA. And the social hour link is UUAA.org/social hour. To close us out this morning, I want to share some words from this book called Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals, from our friend, my friend, because I feel like I know her, Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Out here in the open ocean, mothering is an emergent strategy. Consider the white-bellied, short-snouted dolphins who travel in groups of hundreds, sometimes 1,000. Lesson 1, roll deep. And welcome several other species of dolphins and whales to swim and eat in community. Lesson 2, better together. Though they swim across the entire planet, no scientist or no one willing to tell a Western scientist saw one alive until 1971. In fact, it seemed there was a coordinated movement to be recognized because there were several first sightings of the species on different parts of the planet, all somehow in 1971. Lesson 3, we can be seen on our own terms. The only requirement to be a part of this massive oceanic family are that you got to be willing to dive deep because they eat thousands of feet below the surface. Lesson 4, do your depth work and flock because they collectively change direction abruptly to keep humans from following them and move thousands of miles to stay current with the ocean. Lesson 5, be ready to be transformed. Gratitude to my oceans of love, my expansive family in all directions, my mothers of all genders and ages and times. Thank you for nurturing and holding me accountable in more ways than I can name. Ashe and Amen, family. I'll see you in the garden soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day.